Duke, issue number 1. That's right, folks. The latest entry in the groundbreaking Energon Universe. This is the new book from Skybound. And Hasbro, I guess, because they kind of give the license over here to Image to do this stuff. But this is the first G.I. Joe entry into this new universe. The story started, if you are not familiar, with Robert Kirkman's Void Rivals. The premise of that book was like, there's a big tease, hang on everybody, and we see a Transformer in that book. And then Daniel Warren Johnson is currently working on a Transformers comic book set in this universe. In issue 2 of that book, we see a fighter pilot get attacked by Starscream, and he evacuates with like a weird jetpack, and we find that that is actually Duke. And now Duke's getting his own book, which is technically a spin-off from Transformers, which is pretty interesting to think about. This feels like brand synergy created by the folks over at Paramount and Hasbro in order to make like their movies more legitimate, whereas like if there's like a story we can base off this, it might be better. I say all that as somebody who is not the biggest, person in the G.I. Joe fan base. I know more than a normal person, less than a fanatic. But I'm kind of curious to see what this universe is going to do, and this book has some really interesting talent on it. Joshua Williamson is writing this book, and I believe he's also writing the Cobra Commander book that comes out next month as well, so that's kind of cool. Tom Riley is doing the art, which makes a lot of sense. He's got a very classic pulpy style. Something that would work really well if you're going to do a book about a timeless American soldier. That makes sense to me. And Jordi Belair doing what I would consider some of their finest work of recent time. I think it looks really good. And Russ Wooton doing the lettering. Looks great. So this book opens up with Colonel Hawk explaining to Duke you were the best of the best right from boot camp. I knew you had the stuff. You were a real man of action. You were one of the best soldiers we had. And the flashbacks do have the coloring grade if it's the little dots that show it's an old pop style book, which is really cool. But when we cut to the present day, you see Duke is a broken man who's barely in uniform. He's barely keeping himself together. And the colonel's dude, we want you in the service. We think you're a good soldier, but you're falling apart at the seams and you need to pick yourself up. And he's shut up, you weren't there, you didn't see what I saw. And we get a little bit of a recap for a couple pages just showing Duke barely escaping fighting Starscream. He's we lost a good man that day. He had a wife and a family, and I survived, and I barely escaped. And the horrors I saw that day are unlike anything you don't understand. And I know you guys are covering something up from me. I want to know what you're covering up. And he's just going hard at it. Duke is just this is bad. I know you're lying. Why would I trust a government that's lying to me? This is all bullshit anyways. I hate every second of this. This isn't fair to me. It's not fair to anybody. Just completely pissed off. And recognizably so. And Hawk's take some time to yourself. Get laid if you have to. Relax. And when you come back, we're going to clean you up and you're going to be a good soldier again. He's you think that's what I'm doing? Screw that. I ain't doing that. That's not a part of who I am anymore. So then we cut to 6 months later, and Duke is, I guess, in Washington. He's going to a big party where he runs into somebody who is going to help him. Again, I don't have the biggest knowledge of everything going on in the G.I. Joe universe, but in one of these pages where Duke's driving to this place in Washington, he's reading a couple books. One of them has the name Mindbender written on it. I know there's a Dr. Mindbender in the lore of the G.I. Joe, so that's kind of cool. He then heads over where he meets this woman named Adelaide Burkhart, and she's Duke, it's great to see you. And it's I have some information I want to show you. Look, I'm calling him Duke, okay? I know his name's Conrad. We don't have to get into it. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to call him Duke, okay? So they step into her office, and she's been researching some stuff. There was a new energy source that they believe was found in the cosmos. This of course is going to be Energon, and I'm guessing that's how they're going to power some of the special equipment that go on later on in these books. But the idea is that Dr. Burkhart has been researching some of this other stuff, and she thinks she's found somebody that has more information on it, and she wants to figure out a way to get the information from Mars Industries. Now, Mars Industries, I don't think that's a name that needs any introduction. It's Destro stuff. We'll get to that in a minute here, but basically she is somebody of a like-minded nature that Duke is currently going on, so he's like, all right, well, if you are unable to get in there, I've done special ops before, maybe I'll have a better idea if I break in. So Duke breaks in, he sees a bunch of these big weapons and tanks and helicopters being built, classic-looking G.I. Joe stuff. And he eventually gets caught, and somebody tries to attack him. A big muscle-bound soldier, who if this is a name, I'm not remembering who it is. Mercer. Who's Mercer? That's on like the Cobra side of things. I don't know, but we get a couple of great pages of just Duke fighting Mercer, and it looks really cool, and it kind of just like shows you that Duke is like a real character, and he has like his own mind, and he's capable of doing his own things, which I'm not saying that's not the case you've seen of Duke. He's kind of just been like, not even like relegated to the sidelines, but he's just kind of like, he's the military man. He's never really had to question anything, but if you're doing like this book opposing the stuff with Transformers, and Optimus Prime sees this new world, and he sees like there's some fragility to it, but there's also love in that, then Duke's story should be like a man who has been burned out and needs to come to terms with his new life, which is kind of like what Optimus is doing too. So that makes sense to me. Because when these two characters in this universe eventually meet, there should be some like, all right, we've suffered in the same ways kind of style, right? Like both these books open up for them with them losing like key members of their team. Duke loses like his co-pilot, and Optimus loses some of the Autobots. So that's like a connection there. Eventually, there's too many soldiers that just kind of like overpower Duke, so he kind of gets taken down. But there's like a statue in the lobby that has like a glowing red eye, and then we cut to see that like Destro is like hiding away in his office somewhere, and he's like, okay, no, this guy's probably working for somebody. We could probably figure out who he's working for. But if he were to just like disappear or die, it might draw too much attention. So we'll keep him alive, and we'll find out the people he's working for. He's got some very curious friends. So they let Duke leave, and he's on the phone, and he's trying to get a hold of Burkhardt. He's like, I have proof of what they're doing. I saw it. There is something going on there. I don't know what it is, but I am aware that something happened in there. I want to figure out what's going on. And then he sees that the place where he met Burkhardt has been broken into, and every single person at this party was just slaughtered and destroyed, and everyone's kind of dead. And he finds Burkhardt, and she's crawling on the ground like, I have this. This is the only evidence I have. We're out of time. You have to find, you can't let this get into the wrong hands. Like this information I'm holding, you have to find the truth. You have to find the truth. And she dies. And then more people show up, start firing at Duke, so he has to run away. This time it's the police, which I guess they're kind of dressed like the Cobra soldiers, so maybe like we're saying that Destro and like the Mars industry has control of the police. Maybe that's what we're saying. I don't think it's perfectly what's being explored here. But he evades by jumping out a window. He runs away, and he realizes now there's a target on his back, and everyone's going to want to take him down. That's pretty sick stuff for Duke. Like, if we're setting up this universe, Duke is on the outs of both the American military and now the quote-unquote Cobra forces are after him too. So this book ends, and we see Colonel Hawk is just like, all right, something happened with Duke. Shit. That sucks. He's gone rogue. He's talking to a woman that is sitting in a helicopter. He calls her Krieger. Now, here's something I do know. The name Courtney Krieger belongs to a Joe called CoverGirl, and it's one of my favorite G.I. Joe classified figures to come out recently. That's how I know that character. But she's like, so we're going to have to hire the best people to find him. And he's like, oh, we'll get the best. We want to track an American hero. We get American heroes. And it looks like Colonel Hawk is going to send Sergeant Stalker and Rock and Roll on the mission to go find Duke. That's pretty sick. This book also has the wrap up to like what the Cobra Commander book's going to be, where it's like, hey, a weird gentleman is wearing a trench coat in like a snowy Nordic town, and he kills a bunch of people there. Awesome. This is awesome. Like, this is so much fun. This is something to do with Duke, and like that's the coolest thing I could imagine. Like, I mean, what else, really, do you do with this guy except make him so intense and cool? I think it's amazing. I'm really digging this book, and the artwork is great. The coloring is great. It's incredibly fun. It's not something G.I. Joe's had for a while. Yes, they have, like, I know Larry Hama's back doing, like, like an ongoing continuation of his work over at Skybound, but just to set up a new universe, this is kind of cool. I really liked this. So, Duke, issue number 1, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.